What if you spent 30 years or more of your career reporting on, promoting, and campaigning for other people, and then you hear the call to take a leadership position and step into the spotlight yourself? That is exactly what happened with Darci McConnell, our guest this evening, and you get to hear how she did it and what she's doing. First, let me please explain this very dynamic woman that I met at the University of Michigan when we were students so long ago. Go Blue. She went on to become a newspaper reporter for newspapers across the country. And then here in our hometown of Detroit, she started McConnell Communications, which is a public relations firm going on 17 years of very successful business. She's worked on multiple political campaigns, and recently she made history as the first Black City Council member in Grosse Pointe Park, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. And so it's my amazing honor to introduce to you my friend Darci McConnell here on Bus Up Goddess. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
hmm So, Darci, please talk about the position that you're in now and how all the skills that you've cultivated over the years are enabling you to take this leadership role.
So I'm a member of the Grosse Pointe Park City Council. There are 7 members. One of those members is the mayor, but we have a strong city manager form of government. So, the council, enacts legislation, administers the control, acts on the budget. But of course, there's things that are not our official duties, right? We respond to residents' concerns and move those forward. We raise issues that we think we could impact in one way or another. But in terms of the life skills, I used to cover City Hall. I used to go to city council meetings every day, and I also covered different administrations. So I always had some affinity for government. And actually, in high school, I interned with the Lansing City Council president.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
So I can say it goes back to high school on some level.
Mm-hmm.
But also, as a journalist, your job is to really try to simplify things, make it plain, make sure that people understand, get all sides of an issue. So I think that also helped me tremendously. And then through my PR business, I've had the pleasure of working with a number of different municipalities who many were going through tough times. So they needed a richer community engagement process. So I think all of that, my affinity for government, making it plain, and of course, leading my own business, leading campaigns, that helps tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
But the main reason that I decided to do this is because I like helping people, and that's
Oh, I
the
love
main
that.
reason that drove me to do this. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can we first talk about how you have a history of firsts in your family?
oh, okay. So, my mother's late father fought in World War I, believe it or not, and he was the first black millwright at Ford Motor Company. And
Mm-hmm.
then my father's father was the first African American to chair the parole board. So yeah, so there are some great firsts in my family.
Mm-hmm. And so you being the first in on the city council, the first Black woman on the city council in Grosse Pointe Park, let's set the context because for people who aren't familiar with Metro Detroit, it's been named one of the most segregated areas. Things are changing, but just recently there was an incident with a KKK flag in someone's window. And then there was a peace rally that attracted 800 people. So the need is definitely here for leadership that can cultivate understanding and love. So, how do you see yourself in that role, Darci?
So I don't want to get too spiritual, but I think this is where I'm supposed to be at this moment in time. Prior to that incident, the public safety director had announced that he was leaving to be city manager in a neighboring city. And so a number of council members encouraged the city manager to do a search, which he did. And then, as part of that effort, I pushed for Noble, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement, to be a partner in that search.
Mm,
And then we also, he agreed to post the job on the website. And then myself, Noble, and others helped spread the word about this to a broader community, which has resulted in one of the most diverse field of candidates that they've ever had in the history of Grosse Pointe Park. And why that matters, of
Wow.
course, we know that the police, the public safety department has struggled in terms of diversity. I don't think they've had any individuals of color. The incident with the Klan flag, Jadana Dingus, said that her concern was that she had reached out to them and didn't feel like she got the response that she wanted or needed. And so, but also, we know that diverse perspectives make a difference in how things are uh, understood, treated. So they've actually undergone implicit bias training as sort of fallout from this. I do think it's significant that, you know, historically there's been a stigma about the points as it relates to whether Blacks were welcome here, uh, the lack of diversity here. I mean, I've had friends who, come who've been concerned about being by to visit. So so there's sort of good and bad here, right? Obviously, there's still more work to be done, but there is evolution when you have 800 people show up for a peace rally. And yeah, I
Absolutely.
think my place on council obviously represents some forward movement. And a lot of people don't realize that Grosse Pointe Park has voted Democratic, like the last 6 presidential elections, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. So you have a very powerful message as well about hearing the call to step into a leadership position because, as I said, your role has been more behind the scenes promoting others. So, can you talk about how you stepped into the spotlight because you heard the call to leadership?
So the funny thing is, because I work on campaigns, I've had friends for years encourage me to, run for office. I was like, nope, I'm the background lady. I'm the person in the background that's invisible. I think as a reporter, your job is to be invisible. You're not part of the story. I think
Hmm.
as a publicist, again, it's about the client. It's not about you. So your job is to be invisible. So, so this is a totally marked change for me. Um, I think, of course, hearing that, but again, some other things happened here too, right? In the last election, there were a couple individuals who um, had never run before, and so they, I guess, would be considered more progressive candidates. And there were some long-standing candidates, so they were able to win that seat. The Grosse Pointe branch, the NAACP chapter started. I was a founding member of that board, so that was significant. But also, I think it's just like I said, one that my nature is to want to help people. So
Hmm.
that part just never goes away. And then when the individual stepped down, they asked for applicants. I started talking to family and friends. They were like, "You have to do it. You'd be perfect for it. You got to do it."
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so after I went from like tepid 20% to finally deciding that I was going to do it. And I remember the day I was like, okay, I need to send this in today. So I don't have
Hmm.
give myself another out. So
Hmm.
that's how it happened. And then they did uh, the League of Women Voters moderated 2 forums. I made it through the first round. And then after the second round, was selected by unanimous
Oh,
vote, appointed to the council.
you
So
were appointed. Excellent. So do you have to run for reelection?
yes, I actually have to run for office now. It was only a year-long appointment. So I had about 5 minutes to think about whether to run. And I had to heed the advice to give my clients, try to start a year ahead of time. so,
Uh-huh.
so
Uh-huh.
I couldn't really delay. So yes, I am running for the seat.
Oh, so you're campaigning now.
Yes, yes, I took my own advice.
You took your own advice. And you've actually worked on campaigns for people such as Kim Worthy, the Wayne County prosecutor, to help her get reelected. So you've worked with some really dynamic people, and that's amazing. So how does it feel? Are you excited? Do you feel that you're just going to make some positive change, or how do you feel, Darci?
I'm excited about what I've been able to do. Again, I've only been on the council since November, so I'm proud of the work that we've done. I worked with some residents and one of my colleagues to do some things to help businesses and individuals affected by the pandemic. We
Mm-hmm.
did a teletown hall recently about the vaccine with some Wayne County top health officials, which is important. Again, that's not technically an official duty of a council member, but there's a void. People have questions, they want to know, they want to have understanding. And so that's an opportunity to sort of use the bully pulpit to make sure that people get the information they need. And I'm on a number of different committees that I think are we have ordinances that are like from the 1950s.
Mm.
So again, this is sort of my affinity for government and this kind of stuff where to work to update those will be great. And then of course, infrastructure is a big concern. And so I'm hoping I'm on the Public Service Committee, which focuses on that. So, but,
Oh.
but the other thing I think that serves me well is just uh, what I talked about earlier, trying to make complex stuff plain, trying to
Hmm.
be transparent. So I do virtual coffee hours, but I've also been successful in getting information added to the city's website, just sort of a more open, informative process. And that is exactly who I am and what I've done my whole life. So,
Oh, I love that. How do you campaign in a pandemic?
so because I had to manage Kim Worthy's campaign, I got some, firsthand experience. So we weren't sure whether people would want to, have people knock their doors. So we didn't do that initially, but eventually we did, do some canvassing near the end. We did, instead of doing church visits in person, we did virtual clergy conversations
Oh,
with
wow.
ministers where we had, um, ministers drive their members to participate in that. Of course, we did some texting, probably more than that. I think that's the first time I used that amount of texting in a campaign. But it was just,
Texting,
yes,
like
yeah,
to individual voters or?
right, likely voters. Yes. So
Oh,
we did text blast. And then I think we did for Worthy's campaign, we did 3 of those.
hmm.
But the reach was large, the reach was wide. And then we included a video in there, some key messages, and then, a question at the end.
Hmm.
And I think after the second text blast, we got requests for like over 300 long signs.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
yes, really. Yeah.
Wow.
So you just have to get creative. Some things end up being more of a throwback, right? There's some things that you would have done, pre. Um, some things never go away. It's still about how do you connect with the voters. So you just get
Hmm.
creative and figure out what's the best way to connect with the voters.
Hmm. I love that. That's amazing. So, can you share that story about how the girl wrote you a letter or she shared her school paper? It was
Yeah.
such a
So I was.
wonderful.
So you were asking earlier about why it matters to have a diversity in these positions, and um, so I got the pleasure of we always talk about how important it is to see people like yourselves in these positions so you can aspire to them.
Hmm.
So I do virtual coffee hours once a month, and I had a virtual coffee hour a couple of months ago, and one of the residents who was new to the area attended that. And then subsequent to that, there was a diversity inclusion committee, and she attended that. She mentioned that she'd gone to the other one as well. And about an hour after the meeting, I received an email, and it was an essay that her daughter wrote, and it started with like the Underground Railroad. Then it went through, um, you know, the Great Migration North. It talked about the struggle for civil rights and the Civil Rights Act, and then it went all the way up to President Obama's appointment. And then at the end, at the end, she's like maybe the second to last line, and she said in November, Darci McConnell was appointed to the Grosse Pointe Park City Council. So that to me is one of the most amazing things ever. Because like I said, you always hear about how these things matter, but to actually get that from I don't know how old her daughter is because we didn't get that part, but still. But by the way, she got an A on the paper too. So,
That
but
is such a beautiful story.
yeah,
And
thank you.
you're welcome. And that's the mission of Boss Up Goddess to showcase trailblazing women. And you are certainly a trailblazer. And this era right now, I mean, we have such highs and lows. We have Kamala Harris, the first woman of color
Right,
as our vice president, and the first person of color and the first woman. And we have a female governor, but at the same time, it's a very treacherous world in that, there was a plot to kidnap her over the summer. I mean,
right.
what are your thoughts on more and more women than ever are getting elected into high political leadership roles, and yet there's this dangerous undercurrent at the same time?
Well, I think we should acknowledge. I think is this Equal Pay Day or is that yesterday? Well, where women
Oh
aren't
my
making
goodness.
as much as men, I think
That's a
so
whole
we
nother
feel.
topic.
I know, but we have to acknowledge it. We're talking about parity. So yeah, I think it's amazing that people like Stacey Abrams have, innovated to help with GOTV and sort of played a leadership role. I think it's amazing the number of women, not just in Michigan, but across the country who are in leadership positions. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, Kamala being at the top there. So obviously we're progressing, and I think that's significant. I think the undercurrent is not just based on gender, but it's based on a whole tone and tenor that's, fear mongering, that is not about communication. It's about vitriol. I miss the days where even if you had difference of opinion, you could have a real dialogue. And some of that is social media. I don't think you can have a real conversation on social media because it just escalates so much. You can't hear the tone of someone's voice. You can't see the look in their eye. So we do have some real work to do, and that's not going to happen quickly. I mean, that's a progression or regression, excuse me. And so it's going to take some real time to impact that. But I do still think that communication is key, and I still am an optimist, so I still remain hopeful
Mm-hmm.
that some folks will be able to start having some real conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there are some attacks on voter rights. What are your thoughts about what each of us as individual citizens can do to make a difference, to make certain that Congress votes to make sure that our voting rights are protected?
So the first thing is just to get informed on the issue. Get familiar with what they proposed. I mean, if you just Google, new Voting Rights Act Congress, uh, the what's it called, the For the People
Uh,
Act. If you look up For the
yes,
People
the
Act,
For the People Act. Mm-hmm.
then you can get informed on it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you have a lot of different ways. I mentioned social media, so you can share what you learn about it. Just start there, right? Here's what I just found out about,
Mm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
share what you found out about it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
of course, contacting your electeds is the next big way that you can impact. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. They need to hear from you. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times we talk about it, we raise our frustrations about it, but we don't take the next step. And that's huge, to let people know that you support this, right? You want this to pass. People need to hear from their constituents so that they know that there is voter support for it. So,
Mm.
and also, it's probably a good opportunity to look at what's happening in the state too. Um, you know, I was saying that I participated in this new media boot camp about 8 or 9 years ago, and we had to pick a topic, and we did this topic about the repealing of voting rights laws, and at that
Oh.
point, it was like 22 states were considering it, and now we were talking. I think it's like 10 times that amount in terms of places that have either moved to do something or considering something to roll back voting rights laws that make it more accessible and easier to cast a ballot. So I think it's just trying to stay informed, trying to inform others, and then trying to contact your electeds.
So if I feel like my electeds are already supporting it or supporting voter rights and any endeavors that will support that, should I contact people that I think are opposing it?
Well, sometimes that gets tricky because a lot of times, if you try to go to Congressperson's website, they may say that, what zip code do you, like they need to verify that you're actually in their district,
Oh,
right?
okay.
However, you can encourage people who live in those communities, right, to reach out. So you may have
Oh,
friends who live there, even if you
mm-hmm,
don't live in that person's district.
mm-hmm,
So, and again, that's why it's important to share that awareness, not just on social media, but in phone conversations and however you're in, maybe a Zoom get together with the family, whatever it is, because
mm-hmm,
there you have family and friends in other places where their elected may not. But even if your person is, it's still important for you to contact them so
mm-hmm,
that they can say, hey, we've had, X number of residents who are in support of this, reach out.
mm-hmm.
So it still matters, even if the person is supported.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Because sometimes it feels like you're preaching to the choir because if your leader already is endorsing your beliefs and your mission, then who else can we talk to? So thank you very much for that. Because I
Yeah,
believe we all have so much power as individuals to make a difference.
absolutely.
And you're doing that. So how long is your term?
So again, the appointment was just for 1 year. So technically the term is up in November, but that's why, I'm running for the seat now so I can stay on for the full year.
Oh, okay. And when you look back on it, what do you hope to have accomplished?
All the things that I think people want, that I'm accessible. If they have concerns, they feel like they can reach me, contact me, that I'm helping keep them informed about the issues. But also, that I am, uh, a leader who sees an issue and tries to impact it. So it's a combination of what residents bring me and want me to do, but also hopefully that have brought at least some leadership to, you know, take charge and try to get things done. But
Mm-hmm.
also made a difference. It does matter that, like I said, that to be a first and hopefully impact things, not unlike the public safety director search, for example, but beyond that, what else can we do after having this horrific incident in the park? So
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. Because the park has traditionally been, as you said, one of the most progressive. There's five different gross points, and that's the most progressive. So it was really shocking that that happened. But I'm glad you're at the forefront of helping lead change and understanding.
well, there's some other groups that have helped. Like there's a group called the WGP that put on the peace rally. There were a number of partners who supported that.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos to Jadana Dingus for being brave enough to stand strong and speak up and continue to advocate for change. I mean, that's not easy. I mean, uh, to be concerned about a real a threat and then still continue to speak out and speak up.
Right.
So I'm hopeful there's some other things that we can impact as it relates to this. We do have, I think we're somewhere between 8.5% and 11% African American, Grosse Pointe Park.
Mm-hmm.
Again, compared to Detroit, that doesn't sound like a lot, but I think it's one of the most diverse of the points.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this stuff matters, and I do think that having a different voice, a different perspective, a different life experience can bring something else to the table. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I love what you say about being of service to help. Can you talk more about that? You're not in it to be a diva. You're not in it to have, people wait on you. It's like you are truly in your heart devoted to making a positive difference. Can you talk about the importance of that?
So first of all, I've had people ask me like, so how much does this pay? And I'm like, $0. This is we get paid $0 for this. So I didn't do this for money. And and I just really so I always talk about my grandfather, the first African American on the parole board I mentioned earlier. He told me at a very young age that if you do well, then you have an obligation to give back, right? And I have conversely had an affinity for helping people. So for me, a lot of that has been through mentoring. I have, more than 2 dozen mentees, some that I've known since their high school days. I don't have any kids, so I guess that's, I'm Auntie Darci to the masses.
Hmm.
And then, I've worked with a number of different groups, nonprofit groups. Probably one of the things I'm most proud of is the work I did a few years ago where we helped to raise over $600,000 so that we could get rape kits processed.
Oh, right.
You know,
Right in Detroit.
at the
Hmm.
county level, they found over 11,000 rape kits that had been abandoned in a warehouse. And Prosecutor Worthy took the initiative to figure out how that happened and then to champion, raising money. So we put together a group because 83% of the victims were women of color. We put together African American 490 Challenge to raise the money to process that last balance of the rape kits. So that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of that I've ever done. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, it's just and in fact, I was going to collect petition signatures with a friend's mom, and it was a miserable day out. It was like snow and cold, and as we got on these boards, she said, "Why do you want to do this so badly?" I said, "It's really nothing more than I really like helping people. It's just not
Wow.
it's not profound. It's
Mm.
just who I am." So.
Hmm. I love that so much. It's like your heart is totally in it. That's beautiful. Hmm. So Let's talk about what it's like being on the other side of the line
Oh, yeah.
between journalism and people that are covered by journalists. So what was that like? Because you used to be a newspaper reporter, and now
Right.
you're being written about in the newspaper. What's that been like?
Well, I'm still struggling with like even like right now when you're saying nice things, 'cause I'm like, oh, but so the first thing I remember, like, still it's sinking in, one, like the history of it, and two, going from private to public figure, right? So I remember my dad said he was going to share with some folks, and then my mom said she was going to share with them. So I was like, oh, and then it's like, okay, it is kind of a big deal. So I need to get over that part. But then
Uh-huh.
when we did the public swearing in, like, former colleagues of mine are coming up to me to interview me. And so that was,
Oh.
again, it just an adjustment. So it continues to be an adjustment to be the center of attention, even though I'm a Leo, but that's so that's a different kind though. So I'm still adjusting to that. But every time I have some uncomfortable moment or whatever, there's another moment where something happens where I was able to help a resident, or a resident says thank you for that. I didn't know about that, or something always grounds me and brings me back to why I'm here. So
I love it. I love it. You said grounds you. That is so important because, when you get a title, some people take the title and run with it and they get the ego gets involved, but
oh
some
no, that's the fun part. Like all my friends who are like council member, councilwoman, they have to call you. And I'm like, it's still Darci. So but I think my friends get a bigger kick out of saying that than I do.
Oh, that's so funny. Isn't it fun to think back? We met in the dormitory at University of Michigan. We were both English majors
Yeah,
and and here we are. It's just so fun to watch the evolution of
it
someone's
is. It
positive
is.
life trajectory.
Yeah,
I'm so
yeah.
proud of you, Darci.
The feeling is mutual. It's been amazing to watch you as an author. I think you're so talented when you can teach other people how to
Thank
do
you.
what you do.
Mhm.
And it's so rewarding to do that, by the way. That is
Mhm.
also one of my favorite things. So, like I
Mm.
said, I think all of that stuff goes together. So,
Thank you.
so yeah, mutual admiration society.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, for sure, for sure. Tell me what you think it means to boss up goddess.
I think in my case, it means, as I talked about, like where I was tepid about this concept of, serving. So one is to, even though you may have a challenge and think that it's not for you, to do it anyway, find a way to do it, right? And so for me, part of that was support of family and friends, right? Having some people who were provide that encouragement, but also just not, limiting yourself. So I think part of bossing up means allowing yourself to take on a new challenge and not be daunted by it, but figuring out how you can navigate it.
Hmm.
I think it means finding the the best in people and allowing that to help motivate you as well, right? So for me, like I said, a resident may have some idea, or or you may work with a group. So when you boss up, it's not just you like do this, but if someone, a leader finds the best in others and figures out a way to advance that, right? And
Hmm.
ideally that advances you at the same time, right? So
Yes, uh-huh.
so those are the things that I think I would say. I mean, that's what it means to boss up.
Oh, that's beautiful, Darci. I'm so grateful that you shared this time this evening to showcase your amazing story and your wisdom and your new position. So I wish you the absolute best success in all that you do.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Go Blue. And as always, it's
Yes.
good to see you and good to talk to you. So
You too, Darci. Please let's keep in touch.
we'll do.
All right. And thank you, all of you, for joining us here, where you got to meet Darci McConnell, the first Black City Council member in Grosse Pointe Park, Michigan. along with the rest of her illustrious career and her wonderful personality and commitment to helping people. So if you found value in this program, please do like, share, subscribe, comment if you have any questions, and I will put some information if you'd like to get in touch with Darci here in the description box, and you can answer any questions, especially if you live in the area. So thank you for joining us. And remember, boss up, goddess. You have the power. I'll see